Have you been looking for a new and different way of hanging your necklaces? If so, today I have a cool new tool and an interesting and different project and a great way to use them together to make beautiful necklace cord that's very unusual. Hi there, Sandy here. Welcome to another jewelry making video at keepsakecrafts.net. So the kind folks at Thread Nanny sent me this delightful selection of silk ribbons, wondering if I could use some of them in making jewelry. And I told them, well, of course, absolutely. I've actually done silk ribbon embroidery for years. I haven't done any for years, but years ago I did a lot of it. And I'll have links in the upper right here to a couple of tutorials that I've done on silk ribbon embroidery. In fact, there's a post at my blog for an entire project that I made that I won a prize for, which is kind of cool. But I polled my patrons about doing silk ribbon embroidery and got kind of a meh response. So I'm not sure if I'm going to do that. You guys let me know in the comments below if you would like to see how to use these luscious ribbons in making jewelry with simple embroidery stitches. It's very luxurious and beautiful. But I decided today to do something entirely different and unexpected with these. I'm going to make knitted cord using this tool. This is the Wonder Knitter made by Clover. You can often buy these in the knitting and yarn section in your craft store. And it's a really well-designed tool. I'll have a video this coming Friday showing you a lot of different ways of using this. If you look online, you will find lots of examples using yarn. Honestly, that kind of bored me. You get this little tool, and the cool thing about this is that it spins, and it spins in either direction. So this will work whether you're right or left-handed. If you're left-handed, you'll hold this in your right and do the motion this way with your left hand. So this is the first thing I made with this. I took some of that silk ribbon and I made a knitted cord just using a single ribbon. This was okay and interesting, but I wanted to get even more interesting. I pulled together several ribbons, a 7mm ribbon, a 4mm ribbon, and I even threw in some baker's twine to make this and knitted this. And this is far more interesting. I'm going to use this as a necklace cord for this faux druzy, and I'll tell you more about this in a few minutes. I wanted to use the silk ribbons to make a cord, but I wanted it to be a bit more textural and interesting. I actually got this idea because I had a tutorial from a magazine saying to use sari silk. And it sounded wonderful and luxurious. I could not get it to work. I tried and it just didn't happen. So I don't know, maybe it's my silk. But here are some ideas for different things that you can use to get a really wonderful textural look. How about eyelash yarns? Just these fuzzy yarns. They're pretty thin, but they've got all these great fibers coming off them. Or yarns like this with these little, I don't know what you call that, these little bits. Or ribbons, other kinds of ribbons. Or yarn with sparkles. Or this stuff, this is so plushy, it feels like that minky fabric. It's just squishy. This would add a great texture. More sparkle. So lots of different possibilities. Even crochet cotton. I use the baker's twine because I like the stripes and the different colors just to add a different layer of texture. You might go through your odds and ends. I made enough to make a necklace cord with about 4.5 yards of yarn, so you could use leftover bits. If you've been following me for a while, you might remember this pendant that I bought at a bead show last October. So I went through all of my fibers and found several that I thought would work well together. I'm going to be using this 4mm silk ribbon and some of this dark moss colored yarn, some of this eyelash yarn, and also a bit of baker's twine. I think all of those together will get me a really rich textured necklace cord, and we can also add some beads to it. So the way this works is you need 10 to 11 times the length that you want for your section of necklace. Of course, you don't have to have your entire necklace be made out of this cord. In fact, I wouldn't recommend it. what we're going to do is finish our ends with caps and then just have chain go around the back. So really, maybe 16 inches of your knitted cord will be plenty. 4.5 yards is 162 inches, and if you divide that by 10, that's 16. So 4.5 yards will give you about 16 inches of finished cord. And that's for each of them. So it doesn't matter if you're using 2 or 3 or 1 fiber in your cord, you will need 4.5 yards of each. 10 to 11, if you need it to be a certain length, I would cut 11 times the amount. So 5 yards would give you about a little more than 16 inches. Okay, I've got my yarns all measured out. A couple tips for you in doing that. First of all, I would suggest finding a room away from marauding kitty cats. Oh my goodness, they find the measuring out of many yards of ribbon and yarn quite fascinating. Take your ribbon ends and just loosely tie an overhand knot on the end. We're going to undo this, but it just helps to hold them all together. And then to keep everything together, just get yourself a piece of cardboard that you can wrap it all around. This will do a couple things. It will keep it in order, and it will also kind of give you an idea of what your finished necklace cord is going to look like with the combination of yarns that you've chosen. I did this earlier with this one. I had a pink fiber in here, and I did not like it, and so it was good that I did that because I was able to take it out. I think that's going to look really good. Another tip is if you're undoing spools of ribbon or yarn, put them in some kind of container. And like I just had this on this little votive holder on the floor as I was unspooling it, and that way it kept my spool from traveling all over the place. Also, I would suggest that you do what I did with that orange one. The first time you make one of these, just start with a single fiber, so you can get the hang of it. It's not hard in the least, but you'll make it a lot easier on yourself if you just practice with one. In fact, let me show you that right now. I'm just going to practice with this baker's twine because it turned out I didn't have enough to do my necklace with that. Take the end of your cord, whatever you're using, or all of them, and just treat them all as one, and drop it down through the middle of the tulle, out through this opening, and just have a piece that you can kind of hold on to. So if you're looking at it, have one of the pegs at 12 o'clock, and wrap the cord from left to right, and then down to the left. Turn this so that that peg is now at 12 o'clock, and wrap the cord from left to right. And you want a little tension on it. You don't want it too tight. And then repeat for the other one. So now you should have your cord wrapped around all three, and it should look just like this. Next, have your cord go along the outside of the first peg that you wrapped around, and then through this little holder. This, like I said, is a really well-designed tool. First of all, you'll see there's a groove right here, and that's the perfect spot for popping this little hook. It just fits in there beautifully. There's also a divot here, which makes it so easy to go down through the groove and scoop up your cord. So you take your little tool, you go under that cord that is going over to the holder, pop it into that groove, scoop down, and lift that cord up and over. That's one stitch. Then you can take the hand that's holding the tool and advance it so that that cord is going over the next peg. So like I said, it's very simple, small things that make this tool work really well. Just the shape of it, that those pegs. And what I'm doing on this side is I have this cord that I'm feeding in, just going between a couple of my fingers for tension, because you want to hold this snug, and I'll show you what happens if I don't. If I don't hold it, when I go to pull this up, well, it's working in this case because I only have one. But if you have a bunch of fibers, you want to pull them snug against that peg so that when you pull this one up, they get caught underneath this overhang, and they don't go up and over as well. And this is all you do. You just spin, lift, grab, spin, lift. This one I can tell is the first one because I can feel that that's loose. So you just give it a tug. You'll notice on my first one, my tension isn't very even. It's kind of all over the place. And even on this one, it's not as even as I would like. What I've found is that what you want to do is every 2 or 3 stitches, just tug. Your cord's going to feed down through here. So every 2 or 3 stitches, give it a tug, because especially when you're using a whole big bundle like this, they tend to get bunched up in here, and that is what is going to cause your uneven tension. You might not have that problem if you were just doing a single yarn. That's all there is to it. It's that simple. To finish off your cord is very simple. You need to leave yourself a few inches of ribbon. So if you're using a set amount, just make sure you stop when you have 4 to 6 inches left. If you're cutting it off a card, then, well, the same. You just cut off, maybe a little bit more than I left here. The casting off, so to speak, doesn't use much, but you do need to be able to hold on to it. So you carry on the way you've been going all along, hooking your tool under the loop and pulling it over the peg, except now go ahead and grab that loop that's still on the peg and pull it through all the way. Pull those ends through. Go on to the next stitch. This is why you need just a few inches of ribbon to hold on to it here. Bring the stitch up and over. Then grab these and pull them through. And last one. This one's kind of a pain because there isn't much tension on it really to hold on to, but you can do it. There we go. Up and over. Pull those ends through. There you go. There is your finished cord. You can see by the time I got to this third cord that I made and I started tugging on it every few stitches that this one has some pretty nice even tension. And I really love the texture of this with the eyelash yarn in there. I just think this is so much more interesting. So although you don't get more length the more you use it, you do end up with a thicker cord. So you'll have to keep that in mind for the pieces you want to do. Here are the cords I'm going to use for my green pendant. And like I said, you start it the exact same way, except that you're using 4 at once. So you just pop those all down in there, pull them out and hold on. Just to get a little tension on those first few stitches. Those are the hardest ones, the first few. Wrap from left to right, and around, and around. Spin it so the first one you wrapped onto is facing you. This could be kind of a pain, especially with the eyelash yarn. Sometimes they get caught, so you may have to fiddle with this a bit. But other than that, other than having multiple cords, it's in the exact same way. The hook goes up under, slide it into that slot, and that is how you catch just the cords in the other stitch. Hold this with some tension on the back side. Oh, yeah, this can be the toughest one. I hope that you are finding this project interesting and inspiring and maybe sparking new ideas. If you enjoy my teaching, you might consider becoming a patron because patrons are able to get up to 2 bonus tutorials of mine every month. Tutorials that nobody else gets access to. Something to check out if you'd like more creativity and inspiration. You can learn more details at my Patreon page, which is patreon.com/SandySewen. I found that a cord for a necklace, which is about 15 to 18 inches long, took me, I think it took me 30 minutes total, but I had a few interruptions and distractions. So I'm guessing if you got pretty fast and smooth at it and you weren't distracted or interrupted, you could probably get one done in 20 minutes. Like I said, every few stitches, just go ahead and give it a tug so that you have even tension. Once you have your cord done, you can proceed to embellish it or use it as is for a necklace. So here's this one all done. I'm going to use this to hang my faux druzy. What's fun about this silk ribbon is that it kind of is squishy. So I could use it with this pretty big cone. I could even use it with this really big cone, although I would need to have a pendant that worked with it. Or you could use it with a smaller cone. That actually works too. So whatever is proportional to your particular pendant. Now for bails, this one was made with a polymer clay bail. And you can see this isn't the one I'm going to use with this, but you can kind of get an idea. That fits on there just fine. That would sort of work, but I think I like the ones I picked better. I'm just going to tie these in a couple square knots. So one, left over right, right over left, just a few times. Once you have those tied tightly and secure, you can trim off your excess. Grab yourself some wire. This is just 22 gauge. You can use 20 gauge. About 4 inches of wire. And pop it through your last stitch. Poke through about 1 inch. Grab it with some pliers and twist it just a few times, just so that it's secure. Trim this. So depending on the bead cap that you use, you might find, like, see now that's poking through and I don't want that. You might find you need to add a bead as a stopper. So there's just a little bead on there. In there. Now to add the beads with bead stringing wire, you just cut yourself some bead stringing wire, a little bit longer, maybe 5 or 6 inches longer than your cord. Slide it through your wire loop. So here's where I started that one. Another strand of beads that I already have on here. Add a crimp bead to both the longer and shorter ends of your wire. So slide that down, all the way down. So your stringing wire makes a loop around this loop. And flatten that out. You don't even have to try to do this neatly. As long as it's secure, you're good. Then to see where you want to start your beads, you just want to slide your cone on. Because you really don't, depending on the size of the cone you have, you probably don't want the bulk of the beads underneath the cone. So here's the wire coming out from underneath the cone, and that's a good spot. I've also made sure to pick a stringing wire that I don't mind seeing some of the color of, because the way this is done, they may move along the wire. You could string an entire strand of beads and then try to feed it through this knitting, but I think that would be difficult, would use a lot of beads. So I just added a few here or there. You just take your wire, string on a few beads, poke it through, come out on the other side, string on a few other beads, and keep going. You can see all the way through. I strung my bail on here first so that I made sure and didn't try to put any beads right underneath it. So I put my bail on, pretty much centered it on my cord so that I wouldn't have any beads underneath it. That could be awkward. And you just keep going all the way to the end. When you get to the end, you can see how this is sticking out and making a bit of a loop. So you probably want to adjust. Pull those up and then pull that out so that it all hangs neatly and gracefully. You can finish this wire the same way we started it by first putting on a crimp, poke it through your loop of wire, go back through the crimp, flatten it, trim the excess wire. Once you have this all adjusted the way you want, I've shown you before how to add bead cones to the end wire wrap, add a little bit of chain and a clasp, and your necklace is done. The cool thing about doing it this way is you could interchange pendants if you want, just by changing out your jump ring. So I hope this has given you some ideas for new and different materials that you can use in your jewelry making. It doesn't all have to be metal pieces. It can be all sorts of different fibers to make cord that's interesting and unique. If you're interested in the supplies I use, click on the little eye in the upper right of the video or the link in the description box to go to my blog post where I always have a complete supply list with links to products. Happy creating. Bye-bye.